Hi guys! So on this channel you know that I do reading wrap-ups, so I talk about what I've been reading recently, but I also kind of wanted to do the same thing but with movies I've been watching. I've actually kept a list of all the movies that I've seen in 2018. Not all the movies that I've watched, but all the movies that I've seen for the first time. Like, I'm not counting rewatches of movies, just all the ones that are like new to me. And I've just been recently getting into movies more because growing up we didn't watch a lot of, like, you know, the most famous movies. Like, there's a lot of movies that are classics that I haven't seen because up until this point I've mostly just been watching like family type movies. That's what my family watched. So I'm trying to expand my horizons a bit and I wanted to keep track of that, and I've been really interested in film recently, like watching a lot of YouTube videos about like film theory stuff. Like I watch like the Cinefix lists, or I've been watching a lot of Cinema Wins lately, which is like the opposite of CinemaSins if you're familiar with that. He like just talks about all the good stuff in movies, and it's such a nice channel. You should subscribe to it. Anyways, it's made me want to talk about all the movies I've been watching, so I'm gonna do that. The list is super long right now, so this video is not going to cover all of it. I'm just going to do it in parts until I catch up to kind of where I am now. So this is just part one. Basically what I saw in like the winter, maybe spring, I don't know how far I'm going to get. In my list, I just listed the movie and then the things that I liked or didn't like about it and just my general thoughts. And I rated it on like a 10-star scale type thing. The rating is kind of just arbitrary. It's kind of just a way for me to, like, you know, keep track of which movies I liked best and stuff during the year. I'm gonna try and talk about them without giving too many spoilers, but if I do want to talk about the movie and there's something in it that I want to discuss that's like kind of spoilery, I'll like give you a warning and like give you a timestamp to skip ahead to if you don't want to, you know, be spoiled. I'm just gonna stop rambling and start talking about the movies though, or else this video is gonna be like 3 years long. The first movie that I saw this year is maybe one of my least favorite ones that I've seen this year so far, which is a very unpopular opinion among the general public. Like, I'm one of the 5 people that doesn't like this movie. Anyway, that movie is The Greatest Showman. Please don't hate me, I just didn't like it. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching back to the beat I drum. To the beat I step. To be seen, I make no apologies. This is me. I'm not the type of person that wants to spread too much negativity about film, especially because it's all very subjective. It's just what you like versus what you don't like in a movie. Now, if you liked The Greatest Showman, I don't care. That's great. Good for you. I just didn't personally like it, so if I don't care that you liked it, you shouldn't care that I don't like it. I don't want to get into it too much, or else I'm going to be talking about it for forever, but the reasons I didn't like the musical were, first of all, I didn't know anything about P.T. Barnum before I watched this, and watching this movie I thought, oh, he seemed like a pretty nice guy. He wasn't. Like, he was kind of a jerk, like kind of a big jerk, to put it lightly. And not that you can't make art or movies or musicals or whatever about people that weren't perfect, because obviously no one's perfect, but like, you can make like stuff and write stories about bad people, but you need to acknowledge the bad things they did. This movie just skipped over them entirely, and like, until I looked it up later and heard it from other people, I had no idea that he did some of the bad stuff that he did. Like, just look it up for yourself. There's a lot. And I didn't really love the music, which kind of, I mean, it's a musical, so the music is really important to the story, but I didn't really like it. It sounded very jukeboxy to me. A jukebox musical is where they create a musical around already existing songs, so like, you know how Mamma Mia is all ABBA songs? I know it wasn't that, but all of these songs felt like they were just pop songs on the radio, that didn't really have anything to do with the story. I mean, some of them just happened to fit with what was going along, but like, it didn't seem like they were written specifically for this musical. And I also didn't like that the freaks, I hate calling them that, but that's what they're called in the movie, they didn't really get that much screen time. It was really more about P.T. Barnum's story, and I'm like, I don't really care about him, I'm more interested in these other people. So yeah, those were my like few problems with The Greatest Showman. I rated it 5 out of 10. I didn't hate my time watching it, but didn't love it. Probably won't watch it again. Whatever, moving on. The next movie that I saw was one that I actually loved a lot, surprisingly, and that is Peter Rabbit.
Emerald or seafoam green?
Seafoam green with a hint of battleship grey.
I thought so.
So basically, the story behind this is, I feel like I need to preface this with the story. My friend and I decided to go see this musical because at the time she was going through this phase. It was a phase where she was obsessed with like Donald Gleason and she wanted to watch a bunch of his movies. And I mean, like, I was totally up for that too because he's great. And he was in this movie, and he's basically the reason we went to see this movie. We were both expecting it to be like typical kids movie, like it might be kind of cute or whatever, but like, you know, it's gonna be real kids humor and it's just kind of gonna be a forgettable movie. So we watched the movie, and then as the credits are rolling, we turn to each other in the theater and we're like, oh my gosh, that was actually really good. This movie is very funny, but it's like not the typical like dumb kids movie funny. Like, It seems very self-referential and like it's cheesy in parts, but it seems like it's very aware that it's being campy. And it's just such a charming movie. It's so like just sweet and nice, and it makes me feel happy. All the acting in it is really great. I really like Daisy Ridley, obviously. And Rose Byrne was like adorable. Donald Gleason, of course, is amazing. The violin joke, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about, but the joke with the violin was the funniest thing in the world to me. Like that. I thought the plot was really good, very engaging, and I like actually felt connected to the characters. This movie had like a romance plot, but it was actually like central to the story, so it made sense, and it was cute, and it worked. I think the reason I liked this so much is because I had absolutely no expectations for it going in, and I ended up just loving it. I also just kind of like the aesthetic of the English countryside. I don't know if they're gonna make a sequel to this movie, because you know, sometimes kids' movies just make sequels for the monies. But I kind of hope they do. I would totally watch a sequel. Love the characters, I love the story. It's great. If you haven't seen this movie yet, you should watch it. It's totally worth your time. I rated it 8.5 out of 10, which is one of my higher ratings for movies on this list. So the next movie that I watched was Wonder.
Hi, you don't have to do this. I don't know what you're talking about, Augie. You don't have to pretend as all I'm saying. Augie! Okay, I'm really sorry. Why are you sitting here then? Because I want some nice friends for a change. Me too.
Who is it that I aspire to be? That is the question that we should be asking ourselves all the time.
Again, a very cute, heartwarming film. I have read the book, except I read it a few years ago, so I don't really remember it too much in detail. But I did want to see the movie when it came out because I remember really loving the book. I think it was cast really well. I think everyone really fit their parts. I really like that it followed the structure of the book, so that like, you know, you get the different points of view from the different characters throughout the story. It wasn't like a super memorable movie for me. Like, I don't really remember a lot of it in detail, even though I just saw it at the beginning of the year. My one problem with it, which isn't really a problem, but they seemed to be marketing Mr. Brown, like the teacher, as this really big part of the movie. Like, Daveed Diggs was on a whole bunch of like talk shows and stuff, which is great. I mean, I love Daveed Diggs and everything, and like it's great that he's in this really big successful movie. And to me it made sense that they were doing this because in the book the teacher is a very big part of Augie's story. But in the movie he was only really in it for like 5 minutes maybe. Like, he was in it throughout, but like it wasn't like, it seemed like he was a bigger influence in the book and that they didn't really use him as much in the movie as they could have, or it seemed like they were going to. I don't know. So I kind of wish they would have used him more, but like, you know, I get it. There's not as much time in the movie to like deal with stuff as there is in the book. So yeah, this movie was pretty good. That's my take. Solid, pretty good. I rated it 6.5 out of 10. I wrote the dates next to all these movies so that I know when I saw them. And apparently the day after that I saw those other two movies, I went to the theater again to watch Black Panther.
Strike it again in the same spot.
You're recording?
For research purposes.
Delete that footage.
You guys, this movie is so good. I mean, I don't know who I'm telling that to. Everyone knows Black Panther's great. So at the point that I saw this, I mean, I liked Marvel movies still, but I had kind of fallen out of like being obsessed with them and kind of fallen out of the fandom and everything. And I really didn't get reinvested into the world again until Infinity War came out, which I'll talk about probably in a future video because that was a little bit more down the line. But Black Panther certainly did get me a little bit more interested again. What I loved so much about this movie and what a lot of people loved about it was that it was very refreshing and different. We hadn't really seen Wakanda before. There's an almost entirely black cast. It's just something you don't see in a lot of superhero movies, and just like the whole world of Wakanda and the inspiration from real African tribes and stuff for the costumes and for like the language and everything, it just felt so immersive and made it feel like really real. And yeah, it was different, and that's why it was so good. Visually it was very beautiful. Like, I'm just thinking of the Warrior Falls scene and just getting to see all the different tribes, and just, oh, it's just beautiful. All of the characters were super compelling and interesting. T'Challa is such a different superhero because he's not constantly quipping and stuff. He's more serious and kind of stoic, but I mean, he's still got like a sense of humor, and he's still like a very just kind and caring person. And that's just cool to see. I don't know, he's just so different from our other main characters. Within like 5 seconds of Shuri being on screen, I was like, yes, I love her, she's my favorite. Of course, the other thing people always go on about with Black Panther is the villain. Killmonger is so interesting because, you know, he has a point. Like, he's very extreme in his views, and he goes way too far, and he's kind of crazy. But he has a point, and they actually take his point in the end. I mean, to be fair, his point was the exact same thing that Nakia was saying to T'Challa for like the entirety of the movie. Also, just the Dora Milaje, an entire army of like cool female warriors. Just how awesome is that? It was just such a cool movie, and I'm so excited for the sequel when they make one, because they're totally gonna make one. Like, I don't know if they've announced it yet, but like Black Panther made them so much money, I can't imagine Marvel not making a second one. I rated Black Panther 8 out of 10. Then the next movie I saw was not a new one, it was one that I just happened to see on Turner Classic Movies, which is a great channel by the way. And it sounded kind of interesting, so I just turned it on randomly and I ended up really loving it. That movie is called Stage Door.
I don't like to gossip, but that new gal seems to have an awful crush on Shakespeare.
I wouldn't be surprised if they got married.
Oh, you're fooling. Shakespeare's dead.
No!
Well, if he's the same one that wrote Hamlet, he is.
Never heard of it.
Well, certainly you must have heard of Hamlet.
Well, I meet so many people.
This movie is essentially about a group of women who live in a house together in New York, and they're all trying to make it on Broadway. They're constantly, you know, going to auditions and just trying to make it in show business and everything. And I was immediately hooked. I was like, a movie about a group of women living together and being generally supportive of each other, and it's funny, and this movie's from the 30s and it probably passed the Bechdel test. Sign me up. This movie doesn't have a ton of like action happening, but there's so much like banter between the women that it's really funny to watch. Like the writing is probably my favorite part of this movie. They're all very quick-witted. You know how old movies are, like no one talks like that in real life, but they're just so witty, just the back and forth, it's great. But the women are written like real people, like flaws and all, like no one's perfect, they all have their things that they're struggling with. And the movie really touches on how hard it is to make it in show business. I like movies like that. I like movies that talk about artists and the struggles of artists and the tortured artists, and I know some people get annoyed with those, but I like it. It ended up being a bit more depressing than I thought it would, but it was really good. Ginger Rogers is probably my favorite person in the movie, but they're all really great. I would very much recommend this movie. I loved it, and I rated it 8 out of 10. Alright, and the last movie that I'll talk about for today, so that this video is not too long, is a movie that I watched much later than it came out, which is weird. And that movie is Thor Ragnarok.
I was talking to him just a couple of minutes ago, and he was totally ready to kill any of us.
He did try to kill me.
Yes, me too. On many occasions. There was one time when we were children, he transformed himself into a snake, and he knows that I love snakes. So I went to pick up the snake to admire it, and he transformed back into himself, and he was like, "Yeah, it's me!" And he stabbed me. We were 8 at the time.
I watched this movie for the first time on March 9th, 2018. Because I never saw it in theaters for some reason. Again, like I said, I went through this period of time where I wasn't like super invested in Marvel movies. Like I think I went to see Spider-Man Homecoming in theaters after Civil War, but I didn't go to see Thor Ragnarok in theaters for whatever reason. Anyways, I adore this movie. This is probably my second favorite Marvel movie after The Winter Soldier, but like a very close second. It's just so great. It's so funny. It's beautiful. I love it. Again, I think what I liked about it was that it was very fresh. It brought something new. Taika Waititi just did such a great job with this movie, and it made me want to watch his other movies, which I've been doing. This movie is hilarious. Like, I think he has the exact same sense of humor as me because so many of these jokes were like just so funny. Like, this movie is hilarious, but it also has a ton of heart and like a really good story. The humor doesn't come at the expense of any of the story at all, which is great. I like that Taika just decided to have fun with it. Like, you look at the other two Thor movies, and they're good, but it's just, it's a lot. Like, I recently rewatched the first Thor movie, and it's very like Shakespearean, almost very dramatic. And Ragnarok, they kind of make fun of that with the whole play within the movie thing. And they just decide to have fun with it instead. Like, kind of like, not totally chucking out the other two movies, but being like, we're just gonna start fresh and just, you know, go crazy with it. I mean, the whole sibling representation was great. Like, Black Panther did it really well too, but this is a totally different dynamic between Thor and Loki. And like, Loki's redemption arc, you guys, so good. It just felt so satisfying to finally see him kind of have an actual redemption instead of, you know, being evil. And then maybe kind of being redeemed, but not really. And then he kind of comes back and he's like, hey, I'm on your side, except guess what, I'm not. Like, this time he actually had like a really great arc, and then, you know, just Infinity War happened, which I'm pretending it didn't happen. Also just Jeff Goldblum. Points for Jeff Goldblum. And Cate Blanchett. She's so great. I just love everything she does. After having some more forgettable villains in their past, Marvel's really been hitting it out of the park with the villains recently. I mean, Valkyrie's so cool, Tessa Thompson's great. This movie's just so colorful and fun, and I felt like I was watching a comic book come to life, which I think was the whole intent. If you want a really good kind of video essay on why Thor Ragnarok is so great, because I've just been like eating those up because I love that movie and I want to feel validated, even though I don't think there's anyone out there that doesn't like this movie. I'd recommend the Cinema Wins video for this. I'll link it in the description. It just really hits on all the things that I loved about it. Oh, and let me talk about the soundtrack for a second, because like the 80s music and the whole 80s vibe sounded so cool, and just like the Sakaar theme is really cool. I think that's all I have to say about Ragnarok. I should cut myself off because I've been talking about it for longer than like the rest of the video. And I rate Thor Ragnarok 9 out of 10. So good. So anyways, that's my first little part of the movies that I've been watching so far this year. So like I said, I'm going to split my list into multiple videos. I'll have other ones coming out, and hopefully I can catch up to myself at some point. Let me know down in the comments if you've seen any of these movies and what you thought of them. And let me know what your favorites or least favorite movies that you've seen so far this year have been. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!